All right, so my presentation is on skill integration. And so on Friday, we brought up that Kaizen is a part of our culture now. And so that's always growing and always trying to achieve more. And you know, it can be a little bit overwhelming in these days, always trying to stay at the top level, always trying to hit that next step. There's always a new app, there's always a new integration, there's AI, there's always something coming out. And it can almost, I mean, for myself, it can almost make you feel like you're maybe being left behind a little bit. And so you read book after book, you know, you listen to podcasts, you're always trying to grow. And a big mistake that I found that I was making last year was I wasn't integrating everything that I was learning into my day-to-day life or into my work. And so I found like, I learn mostly by Audible. I mean, I prefer audio. And so when I looked at my Audible account, I had over 500 books in there that I read. Now they're not all, you know, I like they're not all work related. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, but like, you know, that's a lot of books. And what I came to find was that I wasn't integrating it the way that I should. And you know, I had a business coach. His name was Bedros Keuilian. He used to do fitness, and now he does everybody. But he had said, you know, you don't need to read 100 books. He's like, the person that can master 10 books and implement every tool inside of that book is going to go much further than the person who tries to read 100 books a year and who just continues to read, because you don't actually have time to integrate that. Okay, and so like a book that really came to mind for me was, I read this book, it was called The 12-Week Year. And what it explained to you to do was basically you could break an entire year down into 12 weeks, and it showed you how to track and how to measure everything. So that way at the end of the year, you could predictably see that you're gonna be 4 times better. And that's just one book that came to mind where it's like, I got a lot of value out of that book, but I didn't actually integrate that or implement that into my life. I did maybe a little bit of work into it, and then I kind of fell off. Because so many things come up, right? And what I kind of, as I was thinking about this topic, and I've been thinking about this over the last year, there's no set methodology for, okay, if you read this book, then you need to integrate for X amount of time, and that's gonna be now into your, you know, it's now a skill for you, and you can just take that on and you can continue to use it. And so, you know, and not all skills are created equal. So some are gonna be very easy, like, you know, if you're having an issue with an Excel document and then somebody from the back end says, oh, hey, if you use this formula, it's gonna make your life way easier. Well, you can learn that in 10 minutes and you have that forever. But when it comes to reading books on different topics, maybe it's specific to your niche, or maybe it's about helping your clients or whatever it happens to be, there is no set time frame. So it's like, how long do I work on this before I quit and say, okay, it's not working? Or how long do I need to go to be able to master it? And what does that mastery look like? One of the things that happened was when I was in Jeremy Miner's program, one of the coaches had brought this up, and it was just like a light bulb moment for me. And he said, every hour of education you do, so whether you're doing a coaching program like with Sean or whether you're reading a book, you need to do three times, so you need to do 3 hours of implementation. So it gave me, even though obviously it's just kind of, I guess, made up, it gives you a kind of a little bit of a benchmark. And so when I think about this, I think about it like with our meetings with Sean or the meetings I go with Cole. And so like if he teaches us something in that hour, I need to go and I need to spend 3 hours working on that. And that could be something as small as like, sometimes we work just on the intro. And so it's like, you're just talking to the person and you're getting the first 2 sentences out, and we'll work an hour on that. So it's like, okay, I need to spend 3 extra hours working on that. And when I think about it in that capacity, in that respect, I pretty much never do that. And so it really can put things into perspective as far as, okay, how much work do I actually need to put in to actually become a master of this? So that way, you know, I know when to kind of, you know, what to put in and kind of when to step back. And so, you know, obviously when we do books or when we do podcasts or when we do coaching sessions, I think that 1-to-3 ratio is pretty solid. Okay, so like if I listen to a podcast, you know, if you listen to an hour podcast, usually like the juiciest part is like 10 minutes, right? So it's not necessarily the full hour, but it gives me something that I can do to actually go and implement and actually focus on before I watch the next episode. And the nice thing is, you know, the videos and everything is always everywhere, but we can choose when to watch the next episode. And so you can have a cadence of when you're actually reading books and when you move on to the next book. So if I read a book, I try to implement for that extra time. And then once I'm done that, then I can move to my next book, right? And so the key is, what is gonna be my 10 books, or what is gonna be the most effective uses for me? Now, the highest level of skill that I kind of know of that is general for everybody is what's called conversational flexibility or situational flexibility. And so this refers to the ability to adapt and adjust one's communication style, approach, and content based on the context, the person, or the people involved, and the goals of the conversation. And so on the front end on sales, it's about how we talk to the prospects. On the back end with the account managers, it's about how am I dealing with the client? And especially, like, how do we deal with these situations where we have client issues, right? So if we have a client who's unhappy and he wants to quit, maybe he's not getting as many leads as he thought, right? Maybe he has shiny object syndrome and he sees AI and he wants to kind of jump on that boat. Or maybe he's getting a lot of leads, but he's not closing as many deals as he could. And we know he has a breakdown in his sales process. But if I don't know how to talk to that client the right way, if I go and tell him, hey, you suck at sales, you need to improve, it's gonna turn ugly real fast. And one thing that we learn about, like when we think about flexibility, is if I go against somebody in a certain way and they respond poorly, I'm gonna shut down. It's gonna be hard to deal with that situation. So for me, I think that this is the hardest skill to develop for everybody, right? You have those niche skills where it's like, okay, you're a marketer and it takes so much time to do a marketing skill. Or if you're a mechanic, like you have so much mechanic skills, but this is something that everybody needs to have. And so a group of us in that same program, we were talking about how long it takes for us to learn a skill like this, to be able, so like if somebody comes to me and they say, okay, it's too expensive, right? Then there's gonna be so many different directions that conversation can take, because that could be a value objection, it could be a logistical objection, like it could be so many different things. And so what we actually came up with was, it takes about 30 times to go through the situation before you become really proficient at it. And you need to do it in a situation where it's not as high stress. And so on a call with somebody, right, it can be a little bit high stress because the stakes are very high. And so it can be very hard for me to open up and sit back and really like listen to what the person's saying, because when it's in that stressful situation, you kind of zone in and you get kind of narrow focused. And so the best way to do it is to have like situational role plays where you can do it and the client's not, the client is not on the line, right? It's not like, hey, if I do a bad job here, they're gonna quit. But if I do a good job, I'm gonna be able to upsell them into a longer term program. And so if we kind of think about this, and again, we take that as kind of a broad stroke of, let's say it's gonna take me 30 times. I mean, some people obviously learn quicker and they adapt quicker, and some people will take a little bit longer. But if I only role play, or if I only do these situations with my team once per week, that means it's gonna be about 6 months of working this one situation before I'm actually proficient at it. Now, we also have to think about how many different types of situations we see. It's a lot, right? If you think about it, like even for us on the front end, right? We have the intro to the call, we have finding the problem, we have building rapport, we have providing the solution, and then we have the pitch, and then we have the objection handling, and in each part of these sections, there's so many different directions this conversation can take, on top of the fact that you deal with a wholesaler, you deal with a flipper, right? You deal with people who do buy and hold. And then also they're at different stages. You have solopreneurs, you have people in partnerships, you have people who are in big groups. And so all these different situations, they add a different level to the conversation. And so it takes us a very long time to actually develop this type of ability, okay? But if I can understand how long it can take me, then I don't get so stressed out about it, right? If I know, okay, you know what? Obviously, if it's gonna take me 6 months to learn this, it doesn't mean I'm gonna suck and I'm gonna be crap that whole entire 6 months, but it means if I can just, I know that I'm gonna get a little bit better every day, a little bit better every day, and it can also maybe help me to put a little bit more effort into it. So instead of going once per week, maybe we do twice per week. And now all of a sudden I'm getting better that much faster, okay? And so one of the things that I found for myself was I would develop skills and I would hit a brick wall, right? Things aren't working out. Why are they not working out? And Alex Hormozi had this really great analogy on this. He said, every skill that you develop is like building a bridge. So you're reading a book, you're putting bricks into your bridge, right? You're listening to a podcast, you're putting bricks in this bridge. But what happens is you get to a point where you're building the wrong skills. So you have stopped building this part of the bridge, you're building the back end of the bridge, but they're not connecting. And so you need to be able to find the bricks, the missing skills to be able to bridge that gap. And the reality is realistically, we don't see it. So like 95% of our habits are subconscious or they're external, meaning it's coming from marketing. And so a lot of times we don't even realize, like you can't see yourself or see your own setbacks or what's holding you back. And so that's why, if you can regularly connect with other people and get feedback, it can really help you to overcome those limitations because you just don't see what you're doing wrong. So it's kind of like a bridge. So I use a bridge analogy where it's like, you're building skills on one side and then you're kind of, you're still listening, like you're still doing your reading books and all that kind of stuff, but you're missing that, you're not building the skills that are holding you back. Because sometimes it can be hard to see exactly what those are. But if we can kind of look at it, like what I try to do now is I try to look at it in a long-term perspective. I always try to think of like in a 12-month perspective. Right, so there was a book, it was called Grit by like Angela Duckworth, and she talked about in this book that her kids could do anything that they wanted. They could play any sport, any activity, but they had to commit for a full year. So if they wanted to go and play hockey or they wanted to play soccer, they wanted to dance, they could do anything they wanted, but they had to commit for a full year. So kind of when I think about making changes or when I need to fix issues, I think, okay, if I do this for a full year, how good am I gonna get? And it takes the stress a little bit away. Right? Because I know, hey, it's not gonna take me a full year to see results, but if I can look at it in that long-term perspective, then it's not as stressful. Because when the problems are right in front of your face, that's when they're the loudest. So if I can kind of extend those out a little bit, it just makes it a little bit easier for me to manage everything that's going on.